there, Jen.
Hey,
How are
Summer,
you?
how are
Good,
you?
good, good. Hello there, everybody out there on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. Welcome, welcome to the Life, Love, and Money Show with Summer and Jen, where we're here every Thursday. Woo, woo, woo. However, I will tell you that this will be the last Thursday that we're on Facebook and Twitter. You're going to have to find us over on YouTube as well as on Instagram. And Instagram, you can find us every Thursday at 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, which is also 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So no, that this is going to be our last live on this platform. So with that said, oh my gosh, it's time to get into our show. Are you ready, Jen?
Yes, I love this topic. I think it's so helpful, and so many of us need to hear it. So,
oh my gosh, right? Oh my gosh. So today's topic is when to cut off a toxic relationship. And the question that was submitted is a good one. And here I'm going to read this. So I have a friend who I truly care about, and we've been friends for a long time. The problem is I feel she doesn't respect my time. She doesn't show up or let me know when she can't make it to things. We schedule in advance, and it's not just a once in a while thing. It happens often. She also has such a negative attitude about many things, and I've gotten to the point where I feel I just cannot be around this anymore because it brings me down. I feel bad about cutting ties, but it's now negatively affecting me. What do you think? ? Oh, such a good question.
Yeah, it's some crap we all have dealt with at some point in our lives, especially our adult lives.
In our adult life. Even early adult, like I've dealt with that early adult life and then adult life. And mind you, we're talking friendship, we're talking family. It can happen either way.
Yeah.
Because friends are supposed to be our family's supposed to be friends too. And seriously, some of those can go a little rogue. And yeah, you got to set some boundaries. So do you want to get into like more of a story that maybe you've been through, Jen, and kind of explain kind of the situation?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll share it. It was last year, there was a particular friend who, needed somebody, especially like, supportive in especially a spiritual way. So I was like, okay, well, why don't we we agree like, okay, why don't we hold each other accountable? And, I'll call you every day. And it was supposed to be like a quick call. Sometimes it went into an hour. So it was like, committing to dedicating between 30 minutes to an hour every single day. And mind you, this particular person was on the East Coast. So it was like 4:30, 5 a.m. my time. I'm over here in the West.
Yes.
So I was like, and I was willing to do it. And so that was happening, but it started turning into this like missing calls, telling me at the last minute they're with a client. And I'm just like, dude, like, you think I get up for just the heck of it? Like there were times when I was like, man, if I could sleep in, I would, but I had to make this call because I was trying to be very dedicated and disciplined and diligent and all those things. But it got to a point where it was happening every so often where I'm just like, really? Like I was calling and it would go to voicemail and I'd be like, what's going on? And then this person would text back, like, I'm with a client. And I'm thinking, you couldn't tell me the night before? Like, how do you not know what appointments you have the next day? And so that was a little bit also where, even on a business end, this person had their own business. I was like, do you not review your schedule? So it's one of those things where it starts seeping into areas of like, you're losing like credibility in my eyes when it comes to business, because if you don't even know that you have this appointment at 7:30 or 8 a.m. in the morning, your time, and you're not telling me ahead of time, like, hey, I have this call, let's skip or let's reschedule, but you're telling me literally at the moment that my freaking phone call is coming in. It was just getting to the point where like, you know why? This is some BS. So I was like, it finally came to this point where like, I'm done. And it was tough. There were this moment where I'm like, this sucks. I built this friendship. I wanted to be there. What did I not do right? You start to question things like, if we do a self-evaluation, ask ourselves, what was my part in this that caused it to go wrong, right? And I'm like, wait a minute, no, I don't know what I did. I upheld my end of what I said I was going to do. And so I was really adamant about upholding my integrity. I wanted to do what I said I was going to do. And it unfortunately just comes to this point sometimes where you realize like, I have to let this go.
Yeah.
Because it was frustrating. It felt defeating. It felt like betrayal, like we had in our last episode on Instagram, where it's like, yeah, wait a minute. You're not valuing my time. You don't value me as a person. Like, you obviously don't take the time to say, hey, I can't make it, and reschedule. Like, it happened every once in a while, but there was starting to be a period of a few cases where it was like, this is happening way too often, more than 3 times. It was getting so irritating. And for those of you that have followed us, like, I've talked about morning routines. Like, I'm really strict about what I need to take care of before 7:30 in the morning. And so it was just like, man, this is so disruptive. And so, you know, it got to a point where I'm like, I'm done. I'm done. And the nice thing about it was that I felt this, I actually was relieved. Even in those moments leading up to that time, I remember thinking like, well, I feel bad and I don't want to do this. Well, this sucks. Well, how do I do this? And I was just like, I'm just done. I'm just done. And having that boundary was so important. And it made me realize, like, I feel better now, because you realize you are honoring yourself. You are taking care and paying attention to what your body, your physiological, everything, and your mind's everything, what it's saying to you. And you realize, like, I had to do this. I had to do this because it was getting to the point where I'm getting pissed off. I'm frustrated. I'm angry. I'm like, and I love what you talked about earlier and about friendships. It's like, they're not supposed to feel like that.
Yeah.
So
no.
You have to say that was done. I'm fine.
Well, thank you so much for that example, because I think we've all been there, Jen. You know, we've all been there, and the situation might be a little different, but the feelings are the same, where you're feeling like, I don't necessarily want to spend my energy, my time, my efforts into somebody who's not making me a priority, where somebody who's missing phone calls, somebody who's not returning emails, somebody who's not doing A, B, and C, and yet you plan for all of this. And then you start doing that internal review of, is it me? What did I do? And it's like, sometimes it's just what it is. It is what it is, right? And it's like, I think you said, how did you put it in the last show? I loved it, where people are there for a certain amount of time and then they, repeat that.
The one that I said, or sometimes there's going to be people that come and go in your life. Like, some people are coming through and passing through like a season.
Yes.
And you're going to have other people in your life that are actually permanent residents.
Yes. I love that. Oh my gosh. Yes. Passing through like a season, or others that are permanent.
Lack of money.
Yes. It's serious. It's like, you know what? You just said something so important, because we forget, and we just beat ourselves up. And sometimes about, you know, those relationships that we just want to like resurrect or hold on to, and it's like, sometimes you just got to let them go, you know, let them go. And so here we're talking about, you know, how do you break off toxic relationships and people that bring in a lot of negativity, that don't make you feel good about yourself, that just, you know, when you feel like, oh my gosh, you're looking at that phone ring and you see their number and you're like, oh, I don't want to answer it.
Voicemail.
You know, it's like, no, I don't want to answer it. I don't want to answer their emails. I don't want to do any of that. And you need to listen to that inner knowing, your inner voice, and you need to lean into that and go, okay, maybe this isn't what I need in my life. Maybe this person isn't the best for me. And maybe, you know, maybe it's been a short-term relationship. Maybe it's a long-term relationship. And ending friendships is not easy. It is not easy. I mean, I've had friendships from childhood on up, and it's like, to see those disintegrate or crumble a little bit because our values aren't aligning, our wants and needs aren't aligning. It's like, you've grown up with those people. You've grown up with their families, their sisters, their brothers, and it can be really uncomfortable, and it can feel really sad. It's like a major breakup of sorts, right? Yeah. But it's like, maybe it's just time, because we're just not aligning anymore. And those people were, as you said, meant for that season. Right. And so ending a friendship can be a challenging decision, and one that, you know, there's several reasons as to why. And sometimes it isn't even clear cut. So even if you've been friends with someone for a long time, people can grow apart, and you don't have to put that in there, no longer putting equal effort into that relationship. So when you find that that's not happening, you really need to look at that and take care of your needs. And if you can't count on them, that is something really significant too. So like you said, Jen, you have this friend that potentially, you made these plans, you were getting up, you wanted to do something spiritual together and really connect in the mornings, and that person was just really not respecting your time. They weren't respecting, and that means in essence they weren't respecting you because they weren't respecting your time and you had made plans. And so when you start seeing that occur more and more, it's time to reevaluate that friendship and go, I don't know if this is the best thing to do, because it is hurtful. And you need to look at how that's impacting your feelings and what you're going to do about that. So friendship should make you feel like a better version of yourself, not a crappier version.
Yeah. I am not for crappy friendships. Okay.
No.
It's I love what you said is that I think that's so important that we need to pay attention to how is this making us feel? And I think that's so important to pay attention to, because a lot of times what I hear, and even the internal dialogue that I have had many times, is like, well, I feel bad. Well, I don't want to end this. And oh, but then what's my alternative? To stay in it and continue to feel bad because of the way this person's treating me or what they had done to me. And I'm not saying hold a grudge. Right. I'm not saying hold a grudge and move on and ghost and all that stuff. I'm saying you need to ask yourself, what are those emotions that are coming up when you do encounter something and it doesn't feel good and you're feeling disrespected, or you're feeling like your time is being wasted, or this person is just pushing you off to the side, or you feel any of these things. I think it's important that you pay attention to that instead of hanging on to this guilt. Far too often, and that's kind of moving into that territory of like, we're trying to please everybody. We don't want to feel bad that we're hurting somebody's feelings. Like, well, why don't you pay attention to your own feelings that are getting hurt?
Absolutely. And we have a question here. If I avoid the call more than 3 times, I always have to ask myself, what's up? Or a comment. Absolutely, Bibiana. Yes. Absolutely. You have to listen to that inner voice. You have to listen to what's going on here. Why am I avoiding this person? Is it because, I'm avoiding something that I need to confront, or is it because this relationship doesn't feel good to me? And if it doesn't feel good to you, maybe it's time to do one of 3 things. So there's 4 things, which we haven't gotten to yet, which I think is really critical. And that is, 1, the first thing is you can do this, what it's called passive rejection, right? So that's kind of like, you don't answer phone calls, you don't answer emails. You're kind of like making those excuses like, I'm sorry, I just, I got caught up in work. Oh my gosh, my day has been so busy. I couldn't call you. Oh my goodness, I'm sorry I didn't respond to that invitation. It's just been a whirlwind for me. That is passive rejection. That kind of stuff is just really kind of not making them a priority. So that's one way you can start that breakup process and just kind of like distancing yourself from them. The other way that you can do is have the talk. You can have the I don't know if you've ever heard this, like the come to Jesus talk. You can have the talk at the table and you can come to the table and you're going to like, okay, we're going to have a talk. What's going on? What's going on with this relationship that we're not equally investing time, energy, effort, love, consideration, and respect for one another? What is going on? And of course, depending on your personality, you can gradually go into that, or you can say, hey, listen, I really need to talk to you. I really need to figure out what's going on here. This relationship is meaningful to me, but if you're not invested, or if there's something going on that I don't know about that I need to know about, please let me know, because you want to be able to understand the terms of the relationship. And I think that's really important. Every relationship has some kind of terms, and you may not put it that way, like, oh gosh, what are the terms of our relationship? But seriously, they do have terms. They do have terms.
That is such a great point.
Right?
Because I think we go into it so often, we're like, oh, this would be like we're in first grade and we're friends on the playground. It's like, no, as you get older, everybody's responsibilities change all the time. And then we forget that our priorities will shift. And then what is the definition of how this friendship relationship is supposed to pan out? It's just the craziest thing. It's like all this stuff that's not taught.
Yeah, exactly. So it's interesting what we need to learn. And here's the thing, and I wanted to mention this earlier. how we respond versus react when we actually have that talk, right? Because a lot of times when we have a response rather than a reaction, because you could come into that talk going like, what's going on? Oh my gosh, I don't understand.
It's like, okay, are
Balls
we
are
in
gonna
high
go
school,
up.
6th grade?
Yeah, people are going to turn around and leave. It's like you've got to give consideration to each other, come up to the talk with open mind, open heart, and really be open about like what it is that you're discussing. You know, and friendship is meaningful. If you are invested in the friendship and you've had a long-term friendship, well, you might want to just have that talk, and you might want to come into that talk with an open heart and an open mind. It doesn't mean that the friendship is going to be sustainable, but what it does mean is that there might be closure for each other. And that's okay. If you've come to the point in a friendship, and I'm going to go back to what Jen says, sometimes friendships are meant for a season and sometimes they're meant for long term. Like what were the words that you put there?
I call them permanent residents.
Permanent residents. Permanent residents.
Yeah.
And I think that's such a good way of putting it, because as much as we might really love somebody or maybe even have like this dependency on them, because when we're young, it's like, oh my God, my best friend is, and we've been friends for so long, and you begin to know their family and their friends and their parents, and you're like, oh my gosh, you know, there's a real connection there. So it is really hard to break up. It is really hard to break up with a friend. It can be, even as you said, Jen, in our previous, live, it can be even more difficult sometimes than with the significant other.
I agree, especially when you have known that person for multiple years, decades. Sometimes it is very painful because it is a loss in a sense. You're mourning a loss of a person, a friendship that was such an important person in your life, and then all of a sudden you're coming to this fork in the road. We're realizing like, okay, things have changed, things have shifted, and that's the part that is painful because we're coming to that realization like, I could stay, but I'm not going to be honoring myself. I'm already angry or I'm already hurt. Things aren't changing. And you have to also evaluate, is that person going through something? Is that person, are they going through a personal situation where it's distracting them, or they're going through their own season? But you also have to pay attention to, has this been going on for years? And maybe that's how they are. People change. So
people do change.
They do. They absolutely do. And we have to weigh all those things out. But I do love what you said, Summer. It's about like, it's okay. If this is ending, it's okay. I think we get sometimes in our mind that we have to be all things to everybody. We have to love everybody and everything has to always be kumbaya. It's like, no, I really, truly, as I've gotten older, I really believe like, no, it's okay. I can still love you from afar and forgive you, but move on with my life. And I'm okay with that. I don't hate you. I don't wish you ill will. I have no maliciousness towards you. But for my mental sanity and for the people who are in my life, trust me, this has got to end. So it's like, and I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. And I think that's what we have to really, really evaluate as well. Like, understanding that it's okay for you to honor yourself and to really evaluate if this isn't, we mentioned earlier on Instagram, we did an episode several weeks ago about honoring yourself and does this serve you? And you have to ask that same very question when it comes to certain relationships and friendships in your life. Does this serve you? And I want to make it clear that I'm not saying this from a selfish perspective, but it's about more of having boundaries and respecting you as an individual, because too often we're trying to please everybody. Too often we're so worried about what everybody else is going to think and what everybody else wants of us that you start to ignore yourself and stop paying attention to what your body and your mind, everything is telling you. And then you're just freaking miserable. And then you wonder why people are in depression. You wonder because you are only paying attention to everything around you and you're ignoring what you're feeling and you're trying to make yourself feel better, but you're like forgetting that it's okay. It is okay to be walking away from something that doesn't serve you, and stop feeling guilty. Give yourself some grace that it's okay to walk away. There is nothing wrong with that if you come to the realization that this is no longer serving you or has a position in your life anymore.
Right. Oh my goodness. Well said. I fully agree. And I'm going to touch back on a couple of things that you said earlier. So one of those things is you're going to evaluate that friendship just as much as they are. It's almost like, are these terms, because every relationship has them, are these terms being met? And if they're not, on either side, it's okay. It's okay. You're going to have to find a place to be okay with making some hard decisions about, how am I going to either stay in this or not stay in this? How is this going to work for me? And if you have the talk, like, what did that sound like to you? Was there authenticity there? Did you feel like that person wanted to be committed to that relationship? Because here's the thing about friends versus like your relationships. A lot of times friendship can be so much more intimate. I mean, they know your secrets. They know those hot buttons. They were there. You have these intimate things go on that like nobody else knows about, right? And it's like, wow. So when you do that separation, you have that, it's like, that's gone. That person that you confided everything in, that's gone. That is just gone. And so it's not that you can't have it with somebody else, but at the same time, it's that breakup, that trust, that understanding that was there, that is no longer there. So there's that. And then I love what you said about, when you do have that breakup, it's not being selfish. It's about wellness. It's about self-care. And it's so critical that you do care for yourself and your needs. It is nothing. You don't harbor any ill will. You don't wish them bad. And this can be a family member this can be a friend. And I've been through this, and I love what you said. You're doing things to please everybody else around you. Maybe that's family because they're saying, oh, you shouldn't be doing this, or you should be doing this, or you should go reach out to this person. No, because they don't know. They don't know the relationship that you had with that person, what was happening behind the scenes, on the side of the scenes, in front of people. They don't know that intimate relationship that you've had with that person. And so it's like you need to do, because you're right, Jen, those social aspects of living and life can impose on you. And if you continue to let them go, they can cause a depressing effect. And that's one of the things that as a clinician I've looked at. We looked at 5 variables, and one of those was social aspects and the people in our lives and how that can be all consuming and very suffocating. And so if you don't pull yourself out of that and understand where you are in these friendships and these relationships and start taking care of yourself, that's part of a cycle of, you could be contributing to a cycle of depression or a cycle of some kind of mood something. So it's like, you don't want that. That is not wellness. That is not called wellness. So, and I wanted to touch on one other thing that you said too. When you see that somebody's not contributing to your life, or they've got a lot of chaos in their life, and you see that this is going on and going on and going on, there's going to be a point where you're going to ask yourself, how long is this going to be going on for? Because that's taking away from your friendship. It's also impacting how they feel about themselves and their mood. And so you got to look at those kinds of things, because that's not necessarily contributing to the wellness and your health and well-being.
Oh, I have a question. So
yes.
So let's say the person is like that, and I'm totally thinking of somebody right now.
Yeah.
Let's say the person is like that, and it's like, it's ongoing. It's been years. And it's like, how do you evaluate at some point where I love this person's my friend, we've known each other, but my goodness, it's like they are in this stuck rut for years. I mean, but it's now getting to the point where you are feeling negatively affected. Mm-hmm. It's almost like doom and gloom. Yeah. Like you want to be there for them, but it's like you are now at the point where you're like, oh my gosh, if I get on the phone with this person, I like my own energy is going to go down. Yeah. I want to so my question is like, at what point do you remain supportive, but you are realizing like now it's not healthy anymore. Like it's affecting your own mood because this person is still in this same thing for years. It's like you don't even want to answer the phone anymore. And then it's messed up because you're like, I want to be there for that person, but I'm now getting negatively affected.
Oh, such a good question. Here's an answer. You're going to have to determine for yourself how much you want to take on and assume. Do you want to assume their chaos? Do you want to assume their mood? Do you want to assume, like, do you want to take all of this on? And where are you setting your own boundaries for yourself? So it really comes from a point of, what are you going to do about it for yourself? Because you can't, at this point, you're not relying or counting on anything from them anymore, because really that is a toxic relationship. That speaks to what we're talking about today. That is toxic. It is overwhelming. That's not contributing to your well-being. That's not contributing to how you feel about that relationship. As I said earlier on, is that relationship contributing in a good way to your life? And if this has been going on for like 2, 3, 4, 5 years, months, whatever, you're going to have to listen to that inner knowing and how that's making you feel. At that point, it's not bad to say, okay, you know what? I know that this person has these issues. I know that they're dealing with A, B, and C, but they're not changing their situation. But I have the power and the strength and control to change mine. So what am I going to do about it for myself? Because nobody else is going to do it for you. So what is it that you want? And that's as simple as it can get, is what is it you want from this relationship? Because you know that in some way, this person is stunted because of what they're going through and what they continue to go through, because they themselves aren't growing. They themselves are not seeing what is impacting their well-being.
I love this. Like, you're actually helping me. What you always do, like in like a real life offline, seriously. Like, if y'all could see the show offline, it'd be crazy. But yeah, it's like you have the power to change your own situation. I think that's the one thing we can hang on to when we think about these scenarios, is that, okay, at some point, you know, because I have gone through that myself, where I'm like, oh God, I feel bad. They're going through this. I don't want to be that evil bee that's like, you know what, I can't deal with this anymore. You're on your own.
Yeah.
But it does start to get to this point where I'm just like, okay, now it's like I'm drained after this call. I don't want to hear the same negative situation. And it's like, especially when you've given so much advice and help and support to help them work through it, but they are not changing anything.
Yeah.
Like irrational excuses, staying in the same situation and circumstance. It's going in this vicious cycle. And you're just like, oh my gosh, this is like year 4.
Yeah.
Am I supposed to, and then you start to ask yourself, like, am I supposed to be expected to stay? Otherwise I'm not considered a good friend, or I suck because I couldn't handle it anymore. Yeah. And that's the part where it's like, and this is also even with a romantic relationship, but it's like what you said right here. You have the power to change your own situation. I think for me personally, I had to get to a point where I'm like, you know what, I'm done. I can't not tell this person anymore, anything left in my being. There is nothing I can say anymore to you to change your situation. And yet that person is choosing to stay there. And it did finally get to this point, this tipping point for me, where it's exactly what it says right there. But I had the power to change my own situation, and I had to abandon it.
Yeah.
And I had to be okay with that and not feel guilty and not feel like I was the evil one, and be okay, give myself some grace and forgive myself and forgive that other person. Yeah. And move on and be okay with that, and understand that it is not, this is not about feeling guilty. This is not about asking. It's almost like this, and this might be a horrible analogy example, but it's almost like when we tell people that are in an physically mental abusive relationship, it's like, well, it's okay. You know, when you're under that, you know, you need to get out of there because you need to protect yourself. Well, why wouldn't it be any different? Why would it be any different in this situation? This is all about protecting your well-being. So why should we have to feel guilty that you're trying to protect your own well-being because what you left, you had to leave?
Yeah. And those are all really good points, because I think that you are right on point with saying that if you're in a physically abusive relationship, you know that it's going to be important for you to take the steps to remove yourself from that abuse. Now, if you choose not to, that's a choice that you make. But everybody, all those exterior people who are trying to help you, they also have a choice. They have a choice whether or not to be involved in that situation or not. And that's okay, because the beauty, what do I always say about our superpower? Choice, right? We have this incredible superpower called choice. And sometimes some of the most difficult situations and friendships, even relatives that you love, that you just, you have these memories of good times, but somehow they're making the wrong choices for their lives. They're choosing to go down a path that, hey, they made those choices. That's not your path. And if that's not your path, that doesn't mean you have to align with that. Doesn't mean you have to go down that path with them, because you have to look at, how is this impacting me on the short term? And then how will this impact me in the long term, right? And is this relationship meaningful any longer? Is this meaningful in regards to, what does it mean to me and what does it mean to them? And yes, we all have different things that we go through. We have our ups and downs. It doesn't mean that we're just going to abandon ship right away. But when we see a pattern of behavior being established and they're doing nothing about it, and that's impacting you, you have the right and you have the choice to determine what's best for you. And when you feel like that person's on the phone and they're calling and you see their number pop up and you don't want to answer that phone, maybe you need to listen to that and go, you know what? I don't know if I can be here anymore with this. I don't know if I can be in this friendship. Here's the other thing. So I want to go back to some quick tips here. Yes. So how to break up a friendship. So you got that passive rejection, right? Then you've got, come to the table, let's talk about it. Then you've got, okay, we're just going to take a break, and it's okay to take a break, because once you've gotten to that talk, and whether or not that person's honest with you, you need to make the decisions based on the information that you've gathered from that talk. So if you've given if you've had the opportunity to be in a talk with somebody and hear what they had to say, you still have the option, based on the facts that you were given, whether or not you want to be in that friendship or that relationship. And then the next and last part is, you may just say, okay, this is enough. I've had enough of this, and it's time for me to kind of do a permanent separation. And you can take yourself through that process of, the passive rejection, through the talk, through what was the next step, through the taking a break and then breaking it off. And they may react in many ways, like, say, for instance, convert the friendship into a different form of friendship. They may feel hurt and become defensive. Those people might not understand why you ended the friendship, or why. They may not have that insight yet, because they're not working on themselves, and they try to manipulate you back into the friendship. Sometimes you just got to stand strong and say, you know what? It's friendships are for a season, or they're for, I can't ever remember this, but permanent residents. So yeah, I mean,
are you a renter or a home buyer?
That's right, a home buyer. So it's like, here they are, are they going to be a permanent resident? And I love that, Jen. I love that their first season are permanent resident. And here's the thing, guilt is a waste of time. Guilt is a waste of time. That is not a factor that should be playing a part in this. If you're feeling guilt in any way, then it's also something for you to look at and go, why am I feeling guilty about this? What's going on here that I'm feeling this guilt? We are brought up because of conditioning to feel a lot of guilt, about assuming, or, taking on somebody else's issues, or taking on somebody else's problems, or taking on, their time and their exhaustion, and they're taking on their mood. No. You need to know that it's okay to take care of yourself. And I think we have been conditioned to not take care of ourselves, and we have to learn to take better care of ourselves. So this is what this is about.
We need to do an episode on guilt.
So we're at 35 minutes. Why don't we go to our words of wisdom? How about that?
Yes.
My God, I love that. I love this. All right, Jen, what are your words of wisdom?
Yeah, in light of what we're talking about today, I think it's so important. You know, one of the nuggets I want you all to walk away with is to think about that situation and with that person's when they call, when they make a comment on a post, when they DM you. I mean, are you cringing? I think it's that simple. I want to give a simple nugget. Are you cringing? Like, or do you get excited? Like, oh, she messaged me. Or is it like, I don't want to answer that right now. And I think you just need to even just make it that simple for you, because that's just your gut intuition speaking to you. And you got to ask yourself, are you ignoring that? And if it is the cringiness, ask yourself, why are you feeling that way? I mean, sometimes we're so busy, we're going, running and running around that we don't realize, like, yeah, you know what? I kind of feel disrespected, or, I don't feel like they value my time, or I don't even know what the heck we're doing. Like sometimes there's some friendships where I'm just like, I don't even know what this is about. Or do you ever get those people that message you like, we need to catch up? And you're like, about what? About what? So if you are in a cringy feeling mode, ask yourself why, and then follow up with one of the 4 things that Summer talked about. Is it is it
the passive rejection? Is it the talk? Is it the taking a break? Or is it a permanent, severing of that relationship? So
yep. Exactly. Yeah. How about you, Summer? What is your
well, my words of wisdom today are listen to that inner knowing. You know in your heart, in your gut, in your mind, what's happening here. What's going on with the friendship better than anybody else. And you know that you have a choice whether or not you're going to do that passive rejection, whether or not you're going to do the talk, whether or not it's going to be a break, like a temporary break, or it's going to be a permanent break. That's up to you. We all have the choice to determine what is going to be good for us. And remember, there's no sense in, holding on to guilt. It's just a matter of what are you going to do? And sometimes it gets to that point where it's like, you know what? Just stop with all the BS and get clear about what you want to do and break it down that way. It's like, stop. You've got to, do some introspection and say, you know what? This is not good for me. This doesn't feel good for me. And this is what I am going to choose to do. And, regardless of what other people are saying, well, that person's going through this or this person's going through this. It doesn't matter, because if they weren't a good friend, if they didn't respect your time, if they didn't treat you with respect and dignity, well, why are you hanging on to that friendship or that relationship?
Yeah.
So
I love it. I just wanted to add too that I think it's so critical that we have to learn how to ignore. We have to ignore those outer voices and pay more attention to your inner voice.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because are you trying to live for other people, or are you trying to live for yourself? And again, it's not a selfish thing, but far too often that's what stops us, because we're so concerned about everybody else and what they're going to think, and I'm going to look like a bad person, and I get it. It's tough because like guilt that we got to do an episode on that.
Yeah, we do.
That guilt is just ridiculous. And as you get older, you realize like, wait a minute, this is dumb. Like I'm not living my life if I'm going to constantly be under the scrutiny of guilt. Right. So thank you for your nugget. It's great.
Thank you. And let me just add one thing to that, because that can be that exterior noise, those voices coming at you. That can be really hard. But sometimes you're going to have to just stick with your knowing, your inner knowing, and just go for it and just say, you know what, I've got to cut this off. And I've been there, and it's tough. It is really tough, because but know this. People don't know what's happening in that relationship. They don't know what's happening behind the scene. You know best. And so you do what's best for you. And that is not selfish, and there shouldn't be guilt associated with that. And on that note, I want to thank you, but I do want to tell you again, if you are accustomed to watching us on Facebook or Twitter, we are going to be doing this show only on Instagram and YouTube. So remember this. It's going to be on Instagram as a live. We're going to post to YouTube, upload new videos every week. So yes, Instagram at the Life, Love, and Money Show at 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, which is also 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So from here on out, every Thursday, we're going to be on Instagram. All right, folks. Thank you, Jen.
Thank you, Summer.
Thank you for being here with us. All right, let's take us out. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Ciao.
Thank you for watching the Life, Love, and Money Show with Summer and Jen. Dr. Summer Watson is the owner of the production and coaching company Core Women, LLC, is a doctor of psychology, has a depth of experience working in both for-profit and nonprofit in human services and mental health, is a professional coach, seminar host, documentary film producer, and an author. Jen Fontanilla is a former financial advisor and now a certified money coach, speaker, and has published 6 books. She has worked with organizations such as the Walt Disney Company, Warner Brothers, Target, Goodwill, and the U.S. Air Force. She loves working with women and helps them master their money and mindset to empower them to build the ultimate life without worrying about money. Join Summer and Jen every week as they go live on the Life, Love, and Money Show on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and LinkedIn.